Good day everyone. I'm going to discuss about Travelbee's theory, which is the human-to-human relationship. Joyce Travelbee is a psychiatric nurse, an educator, and a writer born in 1926. She completed her BSN degree at Louisiana State University in 1956, and in 1959, she completed her Master of Science degree in nursing in Yale University. She worked as a psychiatric nursing instructor at DePaul Hospital Affiliate School in New Orleans in 1952. And she later taught in Charity Hospital School of Nursing in Louisiana State University, New York University, and the University of Mississippi. She is a project director at Hotel Dieu School of Nursing in New Orleans in 1970. And in 1973, she started a doctoral program in Florida, but unfortunately, she wasn't able to finish that program because she died at that year at the age of 47. Joyce Travelbee developed the human-to-human relationship model presented in her book entitled Interpersonal Aspects of Nursing in 1966 to 1971. And in 1969, when she published her second book entitled Intervention in Psychiatric Nursing, focusing on process in the one-to-one relationship, she explains that the purpose of nursing is to establish human-to-human relationship and to provide care and further know what is the root of sufferings of a patient. Travelbee based the assumptions of her theory on the concepts of existentialism by Soren Kierkegaard and logotherapy by Viktor Frankl. Existentialism theory believes that humans constantly face choices and conflicts and are accountable to the choice they make in life. Existential believes that people has a freedom to choose what he or she will do, and he or she also suffers from his or her decisions. And logotherapy theory was first proposed by Viktor Frankl in his book Man's Search for Meaning in 1963. Logotherapy is a meaning-centered psychotherapy based on the assumption that meaning, fulfillment in life is the best protection against emotional instability. So this is where a patient is actually confronted with and oriented toward the meaning of his life, or dito po natin pinapaintindi sa pasyente kung ano yung kahalagahan ng kanyang buhay. Human-to-human relationship. Nursing care needed a humanistic revolution, a return to focus on the caring function towards the ill person. So Travelbee proposed this human-to-human relationship that the goal of nursing was to assist patients to cope with the experiences of illness and suffering, and also to find meaning in these experiences, with the ultimate goal being the presence of hope. And so another inspiration of Travelbee in her theory was her former mentor, Ida Jean Orlando, who proposes the deliberative nursing process. Orlando's model has similarities to the model that Travelbee proposes, particularly on definition on how to assist patients meeting their needs through common humanity. So, may pagkaparehas po yung theory ni Orlando at ni Travelbee, at sabi po dun sa theory ni Orlando that the nursing role is to discover and meet the patient's immediate need for help, while yung kay Travelbee is to find meaning in these experiences. So let's move on to the assumptions. She dealt with the interpersonal aspects of nursing, focusing especially on mental health. So, sa interpersonal aspect of nursing, nandun yung communicating, listening, developing trust, and obtain data. So we ask the patient about his or her feelings as part of the communication, and then pakikinggan natin sila about dun sa kanilang nararamdaman at dun na po sila mag-share. And from that, we can develop trust and further obtain which is need in finding the sufferings. So sinasabi po dito na focusing on mental health. Ang patient po ay may different approaches sa pain, and para po malaman natin yung kanilang pain ay may a-apply po natin yung human-to-human relationship through communicating para makarelate dun sa patient. So, second one is, she explains human-to-human relationship is the means through which the purpose of nursing is fulfilled. Travelbee firmly believed that as a nurse, building a relationship is humanistic and it is the central satisfaction on this field. So the ability of nurse to effectively apply what he or she learns in nursing school fulfills his or her purpose as a nurse. So sa pamamagitan po ng human-to-human relationship, may a-apply din po natin yung nursing process or deliberative nursing theory ni Jean Orlando, which is the assessment, diagnosis, planning, implementation, at evaluation. And now, you can now know that if you have successfully achieved your goal as a nurse, which is to aid the suffering. So, the third one is inspired by being psychiatric nurse. She struggled for humanistic revolution with devotion and caring and compassion for patients. So, as a psychiatric nurse, we also know that it is more on mental illness or disabilities. And devotion and caring and compassion for patient is what Travelbee is marking on this assumption. And the last one, she stated that every human being suffers because he is human being and suffering is an intrinsic aspect of human condition. According to this assumption, it is normal to have suffering because we are all human beings with weaknesses that forces us to act under the influence of our emotions. So, dumako na po tayo sa basic concepts. Suffering, an experience that varies in intensity, duration, and depth, a feeling of unease, ranging from mild transient mental, physical, or mental discomfort to extreme pain and extreme torture. So, as a nurse, we should know kung paano po natin matutulungan yung ating patients sa kanilang suffering by means of interviewing. But we can't ask the patient directly about his or her sufferings. Kaya kailangan din po natin ng observation to build this human-to-human relationship para hindi po lumala yung kanyang suffering mentally or physically. So, meaning, reason as oneself attributes. Meaning simply means kung ano nga ba yung reason ng suffering ng ating pasyente and to better understand kung ano yung nararamdaman ng patient. Nursing or nurse help to find meaning in the experience of illness and suffering. The responsibility of the nurse is to help individuals and their families to find meaning by using effective listening and communication skills na nagko-contribute sa isa pang concept, which is hope. Hope is a faith that can and will be changed that would bring something better with it. So the 6 factors of hope is dependence on other people, future orientation, escape routes, the desire to complete a task or have an experience, confidence that others will be there when needed, and the acknowledgement of fears and moving forward towards its goals. So, ang job po ng nurse is to help patient to maintain hope and avoid hopelessness. So, meron po tayong may encounter ng mga patient na nawawalan na ng pag-asa, lalo na kapag may mga emergency situation, and we as a nurse should give faith for her or his recovery. Communication, a strict necessity for good nursing care. So, ang purpose po ng communication is to obtain information about the patient's suffering, and we as a nurse should be a good communicator to help for his or her recovery. Using himself therapeutic. One is able to use it self-therapeutic. Self-awareness and self-understanding, understanding of human behavior, the ability to predict one's own and others' behavior are important in this process. It refers to nurses' presence physically as much as possible and make yourself as an effective medicine to aid the suffering. So, for the last concept, targeted intellectual approach. Nurse must have a systematic intellectual approach to the patient's situation. Critical thinking is needed to make this approach and to treat the patient's suffering. So let's move on to the meta paradigm in nursing. Person. Person is defined as a human being. Both the nurse and the patient are human beings. So according to Travelbee, human being is a unique individual which also have different sufferings, which Travelbee wants to emphasize in this. As we understand our human being, we grow and develop more human consciousness. At sinabi rin po ni Travelbee sa theory na to na there are no patients. Mayroon lamang pong mga tao na hindi kayang alagaan ng kanilang sarili and need ng assistance. Health is subjective and objective. Subjective health is individually defined state of well-being in accord with self-appraisal or physical, emotional, spiritual status. Subjective health refers on how the persons evaluate their own health status. Like for example, tinanong natin yung ating patient kung ano yung kanilang nararamdaman. Like masakit yung ulo ko, masakit yung ganito ko, masakit si ganyan, pero wala tayong nasisense na any complication or complications. Objective health is an absence of discernible disease, disability of defect as measured by physical examination, laboratory tests and assessment by spiritual director of or psychological counselor. Well, dito naman sa objective health, dito natin malalaman kung meron ba talagang sakit itong si patient or kung ano ba yung sakit ni patient, and base ito sa mga test, sa mga laboratory findings and assessment ng mga professional. Environment. Environment is not clearly defined. Travelbee defined human conditions and life experiences encountered by all men as sufferings, hope, pain, and illness. And tanging mga pasyente lamang nakakaramdam nitong suffering, hope, pain, and illness. Sa tayong mga nurses ay tayo yung nagbibigay ng hope sa patient na dapat nararamdaman ng pasyente para maging effective. Nursing, an interpersonal process whereby the professional nurse practitioner assists an individual, family, or community to prevent or cope with experience or illness and suffering, and if necessary, to find meaning in these experiences. Nursing defines by Travelbee as the most essential part of the paradigm, as the nurse will help the patient to identify his or her sufferings and later treat it. So, ito na po mismo yung purpose ng human-to-human relationship. This is the nurse na makapagbigay ng hope sa ating patient and to find the meaning of their sufferings. As the nurses are the one who will employ a complete reasoning of why the patient suffers. So, punta na po tayo sa pinakang focus ng theory. So, itong human-to-human relationship can be established by an interaction process or the 5 phases of interaction process. Travelbee believed nursing is accomplished through human-to-human relationship that begin with the original encounter and then process through stages of emerging identities, developing feelings of empathy, and later feelings of sympathy. The nurse and patient attain a rapport in the final stage, meeting the goals of nursing. It is a prerequisite to achieving a genuine human-to-human relationship. So let's go to the first phase of interaction process, the original encounter. It is described as the first impression by the nurse of the sick person and vice versa. The nurse and patient see each other in stereotype or traditional roles. So, kung makikita po natin sa baba, si nurse and si patient ay malayo sa isa't isa dahil wala pa po silang connection dito at since ito pa lang po yung una nilang pagkita. At sabi po dito, the nurse and patient see each other in traditional roles kung saan tinitingnan po ni nurse si patient as a patient na kanyang gagamutin at si patient kay nurse na mag-iintay lang para gamutin ni nurse. So, sa second phase, emerging identities. In this phase, it is described by the nurse and patient perceiving each other as a unique individuals. They are both aware that they have different thoughts and feelings. And at this time, dito pa lang po nabubuo yung kanilang relationship ko. So, kung mapapansin ninyo, unti-unti silang maglalapit. So, third one is the empathy. In this phase, it is described as the ability to share in the person's experience. The result of the empathetic process is the ability to expect the behavior of the individual with whom he or she empathizes. So, Travelbee believes that the similarities of experiences will help nurse to understand the client's need. So, meron na pong sharing of experience sa empathy and dito na po simulang maiintindihan ni nurse si patient and both nade-develop na po yung feelings ni nurse at ni patient. Sympathy. It goes beyond empathy. When one sympathizes, one is involved but not incapacitated by the involvement. The nurse should use a disciplined intellectual approach together with therapeutic use of self to make helpful nursing actions. So, dito po sa sympathy, kumbaga si nurse ay sinusubukan niya ng ilagay yung sarili niya sa katayuan ni patient and meron ng sharing of feelings and nagiging emotional na and nararamdaman na or mas naiintindihan na ni nurse kung ano ba yung nararamdaman talaga ni patient. And last phase is the rapport. Rapport is described as nursing interventions that lessens the client's suffering. A nurse is able to establish rapport because she possesses the necessary knowledge and skills required to assist ill persons, and because she is able to perceive, respond to, and appreciate the uniqueness of the ill human being. So, dito sa report, makikita natin na buong-buo na yung relationship ni nurse and ni patient. At na-achieve na ni nurse yung role niya na mahanap makita kung bakit pa na-experience ni patient itong suffering at kung ano ba yung pinag-uugatan nitong suffering na ito. At dito na rin na-build ni patient yung trust niya kay nurse. Kaya, yun, na-achieve na ni nurse yung role niya dito sa report. Dahil na-lessen na rin yung suffering ni patient. So, ito po yung human-to-human relationship model. Pinaghiwalay-hiwalay ko lang po. Again, yung first phase, original encounter, second, emerging identities, third, empathy, fourth, sympathy, and the final phase, which is the report. And so, I hope you learned something. Thank you so much.